Cool.
All right. Yes, Christopher Nolan sucks.
I can't wait.
We're done,
It's
right?
going to be a great video.
Right.
Hi, my name's Greg Snyder, and I want to walk through the movies of Christopher Nolan, and I've brought with me a resident expert in said Nolan films. It's one of the hardest things to do is to rank a director's whole filmography, and when you have somebody as good as Christopher Nolan, every film could be his best. There's an element that you can use to follow through all of his films, whether that's the themes, whether that's the philosophical ideas, whether that's his artistic choices, that can help you move through each film, but it doesn't necessarily get you to a subjective ranking. And so hopefully by the end of the day, we find a way to rank the films of Christopher Nolan in a way that makes sense, and I'm sure most of you will disagree with, but that's the fun part about this, is all film is subjective, but we're gonna do our best and find a way to find the best Christopher Nolan film, and maybe we'll talk about some reasons why or why not Christopher Nolan is the GOAT, and maybe he's the best director working today or not. So today I have Drew Chansey with me, and he is a filmmaker, writer, director, producer, composer, editor, gets the whole thing done. He's a one-man show, but as I've said previously, he is a Nolan fan first and foremost. I think you would say that he's your favorite director?
Yeah, that's a very safe thing to
It's
say.
accurate.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, as I said before, him being my friend and a resident expert, I thought he would be a great choice to add to a movie review here where I'm going to rank Christopher Nolan's films. With that, most of you know who Christopher Nolan is, but a small, simple explanation of his career probably is due. He started with a movie called Following, had a short film before that he did in school. He's a British director, and he ended up creating a production company with his wife, Emma Thomas, called Syncope. And as far as the progression of his career goes, once he made a film called Memento, it took the film world by storm because of its nonlinear structure and its ability to delve into a character's perspective that may or may not be true. And that's one of the great things that I said about film from the beginning, is that subjective nature. So Nolan is presenting us that subjective nature as a function of the screenplay. And I think that's what really hooked people. And then, of course, there's a twist ending. Spoilers ahead, just for the sake of all the movies of Christopher Nolan. Keep that in mind. And so as Memento took the world by storm, he was able to build a career out of that. Also, where he moves into a movie where he makes a villain with Robin Williams, which is probably one of the best villains of all time. And it's also really crazy that Robin Williams could pull off being a villain. So anyway, once he had made Insomnia with two of our biggest actors at the time, which was Al Pacino and Robin Williams, it was kind of off to the races. And that's when we start getting some really heavy hitters. We get a Batman trilogy, we get Inception. And then as he's matured and moved along with his artistic vision, we end up with something like Oppenheimer, which, wins Best Picture, he gets Best Director, and wins a few other awards. Yeah. And so you can tell that not only has Christopher Nolan changed the film space, but he's also been rewarded for it. He's made some really high-end blockbusters. He's not made the most money of any director. That might be a James Cameron or a Steven Spielberg, somebody like that. But he's made a lot of money doing it, and every time he makes a film, it is an event. It is something that everybody wants to get out and see and make the most of because it's something everybody wants to talk about. He's almost the last bastion of the monoculture, and I think that's really special. And I cannot wait for The Odyssey, which comes out this week, and we will hopefully do a follow-up so that we can add The Odyssey into this on the back end.
One thing you could add, there's a great book, I'm blanking on his name, but it's called the Nolan Variations. This author has sat down with people like Nolan and Scorsese and he spent 40 hours having conversations with Nolan, which allowed him to write this book, which is like the deepest dive you can get on Christopher Nolan and his filmography leading up to the making of Tenet.
Okay.
So, and it gets really philosophical. I need to let you borrow it. You should read it.
Okay. Yeah. We'll put the link in the description too.
Yeah.
Yeah. That way it's available for
that
everybody.
would be my one. That's kind of my one insert as like, hey, if you want to deep dive more on kind of Nolan, including his filmography, but the man behind the filmography and walking through that, this book is a great
Awesome.
thing.
Great recommendation.
Yeah.
What visual or storytelling techniques actually make a Nolan film a Nolan film? Like in a broad sense.
Time.
Yeah.
Ticking time.
Sound design, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's all a part of it. The editing is meticulous to the point that maybe some moments are overdone. Maybe it's almost feels like it's thought out too much. But like you can't deny that there's intention behind every beat of a Nolan film. He really thought through it.
Yeah. So when you say time, though, beyond sound design, how do you see that playing out in different aspects? Like, would you say that structure is represented via
Structure's
time?
a part of it.
Dunkirk's a good example,
Yes.
right? It's 3 timelines.
Yes. Yeah. And they're under pressure. They're like, time is their life. It's ticking away. But I think you see he makes every one of his characters, or his leads anyway, wrestle with time because they're encapsulated in time in a linear fashion. But his choice to go non-linear, I think is what draws a lot of people to his films, because that is how we think. Like, even though we're walking through time linearly, we don't operate in it in a linear way, because I'm making decisions and interacting with you based off of my past experience or my baggage from previous conversations and choices or shame or whatever, or my expectation of the future holds me back in a moment or sets me free in a moment to operate in a certain way. So we're never making a single decision in a moment in time that's not affected by the past or the future. And I think he's really landed on something with that non-linear thing that allows us to, I think, experience a character and what they're wrestling with more truly and honestly because of that decision to write and edit in that way.
That's a really good point. Also, if you take that a step further and you talk about what a dream is, right? Because if you take this mentality that is prevalent in Inception, but also in some of his other films, the dream being a further thought process towards we're experiencing time in a different way, literally from a foundational existential perspective, dreams can be an opening to a different time frame.
Yes.
Now, whether or not that's memory or whether or not that's future, is up for debate a little bit. But the concept's still there, which is that you are experiencing in a dream a different timeline, and therefore whether or not it's present, past, or future is up for debate in your actual awake self.
Yeah.
And so once you put that on film, it's like, oh, okay, so if Nolan's playing with this idea of existential time within existence, or however you want to say that, then you're getting kind of a more holistic perspective of a person.
Yeah.
Or a character in this case.
Sure.
That's cool, man. That's a really neat thought.
I think you bring up Inception. We're talking about how does Nolan display time. Inception's the one example in his films where he actually slows down the frame. We move into slow motion. Otherwise, he always stays in real time, because we don't experience life in slow motion. So Inception is the one time where he breaks that rule, because it's letting you know you're in a dream and you're experiencing things based off of how we, as best we understand that we experience dreams, where it feels like it was this long, but it's like, oh, no, that dream probably was only 10 seconds long, but it felt like I just walked through 2 years. Whatever.
Or I skied down a mountain.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, man, that's interesting. And then if you take that thought, because you were saying that, I was like, oh, no, Interstellar does that too, but it doesn't. Once he's in the fifth dimension, it's real time.
Yeah.
Like there's no change from his perspective on the dilation of time.
Yeah.
Which is funny, because that's exactly what's happening in space. It's dilating, and he's getting longer or shorter depending on where he is.
Right.
That's really cool. Yeah. I had not thought of that. Right on. So as far as time as an element, it's simpler put, it's like in an Oppenheimer, it's 2 timelines working together to reach a climax. Or a finality. Inception, it's, playing with dilation so that it's a dream-like sequence that's literally smaller and smaller amounts of time. because you're going deeper and deeper into the brain. Interstellar, it's literally based on black holes and, dimensional travel. Dunkirk, it's 3 timelines that are literally the different aspects of what's happening in the war, and, the literal minute, hours, minute, that's what it is.
Weekday hour.
Yeah,
Yes.
weekday hour. Yeah, see, that's great. So that's so cool. And then there's even a clock.
Yep. Yeah.
The whole time.
That score.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
That opening scene is incredible.
Yep.
Which that's something else I was going to come back to, is I think that's a really big part of his style. But so literally every film, you can make an argument, has a structural, if not a character-based version of time. Yeah. Okay, so what's another one that creates Nolan's style?
You mean that's not time? Yeah.
Yeah, like what makes something look Nolan or be Nolan? Like if you put on a movie, can you notice that it's like, that's Nolan?
I might say color palette and minimalism to a degree, or like minimalism might not be the right word, but like there's a simplicity. It feels like he takes only the needed ingredients for a scene and puts them in. Like a lot of his spaces in scenes and sets have a lot of open space in them. They don't necessarily feel empty, but he's using that, I feel like, to match or allow the color palette to be what it wants and needs to be.
I've read and I've seen him talk about there's a specific artist, which I can't remember the name of at the moment, that uses a very blue, gray, black, impressionistic in its nature, but also very minimalistic in its artwork. So I think that's a good description of what he would expect his palette to represent.
Yeah.
And then it's interesting that you take that a step further to production design, because by taking things out of frame, he's giving more importance to things that are there and allowing you to focus on what we were talking about before, which is this character-driven mentality. Because you're right, I agree with you that color palette kind of is Nolan. Like, and there's that beige aspect to it. Like, as he's gone along, he started to get away from blue and do more beige, or tan.
Yeah.
But that's also because he's been working on beaches and stuff like that, which I think the Odyssey looks like it's going to do a ton of tan. And a lot less blue, but then it's on the ocean for most of it anyway. So there's kind of a back and forth there.
And obviously, he likes the black and white versus to display different passive time. Obviously, Memento and Oppenheimer.
Right.
And I think it works. It's effective.
Especially because he's creating enough shadow control that like it still is beautiful in its own right. Just like any good chiaroscuro, I think is what you do with that, where you're balancing, black and white with shadow. I think there's a progression there, because I think Oppenheimer is actually better at that than Memento is, but the time thing is still useful, because like it's definitely helping you distinguish which one you're in.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and we mentioned it. Sound design and score are massive for him, and I use that word intentionally. It's allowed. I went to see Dunkirk in the Dolby Atmos theater first before I saw it in IMAX. And those first gunshots in that opening scene with the soldiers out in the street picking up the cigarette and the hose and the papers falling down and all that, when those gunshots start going off and taking them out, it was so incredibly and frighteningly loud. But it was awesome. But it scared me.
Yeah,
it was loud.
Sure.
But he loves a big entrance and a big exit in his films, and that's primarily due to sound design. His films don't open up with a ton of dialogue. It's usually some sort of action sequence, and sometimes they end with no dialogue, but usually there's some sort of monologue where you're not seeing the character talking. It's just this big exit. So he's encapsulating what he wanted you to see in something, like bookending with this sound design between score and sound, and lack or intentional use of dialogue.
I have personally had been affronted by some of that myself. Like, that scaring tactic I think works, but I think as we go a little further, I think he took it too far in Interstellar, and I think he took it too far in Tenet. And what I mean by too far is that the music became such a character and so overbearing that I lost myself, or I pulled myself out of the movie. Because in Interstellar, like, you start with that organ when they get out, what is it, past Jupiter or whatever?
Yeah.
Like when it starts to really swell. And it's so great. But then as you got later in the film, it became like, it was like fighting against what was actually happening on screen. And then I came out of the first one of Tenet, and I like didn't know what had happened because I couldn't, because you know sometimes and I would say this might be part of theater owners' problems because sometimes they just turn it up too loud.
Yeah.
Sometimes theater owners just have the speakers at a different decibel level
Right.
than what is really needed for the film.
Right.
And so that particular viewing, I think I had a too loud of speaker system because I've seen it since and it's better.
Yeah.
But like the sound design was not helped by a louder decibel setting in the actual theater itself.
Yeah.
And I literally just got like so much sound against my ears. I didn't know what had happened. I didn't understand the movie. Like even the small bits of dialogue that do give you exposition I hadn't heard. Like there was just stuff like that. I was just like, what? Yeah. So I did not like Tenet the first time I saw it. And it's still on the lower end of my list, mainly because of that. So I think it's interesting because you talk about sound design being massive. I think that's a good term because he definitely is an artist that's playing with all of the capabilities of his art form.
Yeah.
Right?
And he wants to push the limits on everything.
Right.
Which includes
Which
sometimes...
most people don't do.
Yeah.
Right? No one is trying to push sound design except maybe like an Edgar Wright, which at the beginning of Baby Driver, I don't know if you've seen that, but the beginning of Baby Driver, he's literally, the guy is acting out what's playing in the music. And the music is completely locked in metronomically to the action happening on the screen. So like movements, car doors, everything is in time. It's beautiful. But Nolan doesn't push it in that direction. He pushes it more towards, you know, that character focus of like, oh no, the music is a character that's helping the rest of the film.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely agree that massive is the right word because he's trying to elevate sound design and music to be equal with the rest of the film.
Yeah.
And I think in Tenet specifically, just my opinion, I think it does go too far. But that doesn't mean that it like couldn't keep going. Like there could be a version where it goes further and it's better. I don't know if I've seen that film yet.
I have found, I'll say on the sound design, I tend to be one that's less bothered by it than other people, but I love loud. I love massive. I would have a tendency in my own work to push those same levels, and even on a bunch of short films that I made. That's a lot of feedback I got when I would show it to my coworkers or other people. Go, incredible, but can you pull the score and the sound design down just a little bit? Yeah. It's like, okay. And test audiences are important for that. And it also makes you wonder, just to note it, I wasn't even planning on referencing COVID, but that being made in that time, you wonder if the test audiences were smaller, if they didn't even do that as much. I know he also stated somewhere that they were designing that sound in the ideal place for that sound. So it may actually be incredible, but different theaters and the levels that they put it, how the walls and ceilings and all the things are treated, like not everything can live up. It's the famous, if you're a musician, the car test. Right? You record your album in the studio, you're like, oh, it sounds great, but go drive in the car and listen to it. Does it still sound great? Because a lot of times, especially if you're self-producing, it does not. Right. So how do you meet that? How can you push the massive ideas but also be mindful of the limitations of...
I will just do a plug here too. This is why I think theater owners are missing a big chunk of the market. I think that they don't understand that the elevated art form is just as important as the commoditied art form. And so what they've done is they've leaned towards, you know, shareholder value versus artistic integrity. And I think there's a give and take there, I understand, because of revenue and profits, but at some point there is a place where you can elevate it. So a Dolby Cinema or an IMAX laser or a 70 mil, all of these do reach towards that. Yeah. But one of the big issues is that they're not treating the actual structure of the room. They're not working it like it needs to have good sound. And so that doesn't get affected in a good way. It gets affected in a bad way. I mean, even bleed happens in all the theaters I go to now, where you can hear the movie next door in your movie. Right. Which is like, this place is built to do this. Why haven't they fixed this problem? Right. Because it would be fixable. Yeah. Like, it is a thing you can spend money on to fix. So I was just kind of trying to do a plug for theater owners need to do better. Okay, so a really strong question. Is Christopher Nolan the greatest director of all time? And if he is, why? But if he isn't, who would take that mantle? Or if, you know, we don't want to talk too much about other directors in this one, but like, where would you draw that line? I can start. I actually don't know if he is yet. So I'd like to say he's probably one of the best working today, especially as I've gone through to rank these films. Because when you start actually looking at the filmography as a whole, he hasn't missed. Everything has such quality. Whereas, like, you go to a Steven Spielberg, who some people would say is the greatest of all time, he's missed. There's been movies that are kind of ugh. And now they're really well made. His craft is always there, which is what's happening with Nolan.
Right.
So that's why I'm like, okay, when Nolan's been doing this for 50 years, will I feel the same way about him as I do Steven Spielberg? Where I have some of the greatest movies of all time in like a Jurassic Park, right? Or a Jaws or something. But then it's like, I also get a Tenet, which I'm less happy with. Yeah. So it's like, but I mean, I think Tenet's better than most of Steven Spielberg's crappy movies, right? So it's like, I think there's not enough time yet to actually make this claim, but I would make the argument that he's at least in the top 3 to 5 in working today.
Absolutely.
Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I generally agree. I feel like my just pure opinion is yes, he is, but I'm also I'm actually quite critical of him, even though I love him. And I would argue that he is the best from the standpoint of he's decided what he wants to do, and he's ruthless and singular about that vision. And that's why even like his worst films, or film, depending on who you're talking to and what they think, is still done excellently and with intention. And I think that's where some of the greater directors have picked up a project and you watch it and you go, it kind of seems like you quit caring a little bit and you didn't give it your all. And maybe you were fighting with a studio or this or that, or resources got pulled, or you didn't have full authority with changes in the script. I don't know, but you do see misses, and it is what it is. You question the director, and I have less questions for him. You know why Nolan's doing what he's doing, even if you disagree with it. And that's where I would lean towards. Yes, he is, but that's not saying it's less about his slate and more about his conviction and just I'm going all in on this one project every time, and I'm gonna give my everything to it, and then I'm gonna move on to the next one. I'm gonna do exactly the same thing. I'm gonna give everything to it. Even if not everyone agrees with my opinions. I think that's what edges him to the top. So if you force me into, is he the best right now of all time? Yeah, but he could lose that spot. We'll see what happens with the Odyssey. We'll see what he does after that. You know, he went back in time a little bit with Oppenheimer, not way back in time, but back in time a little bit. Did a good job. It's going way back in time now, despite some of the modern approach to it, so I hear. But we'll see how he does with it. But I'm also curious, what will he do after this? Will he come back to like guns and spy thrillers, or more modern day, like, you know, the Dark Knights and Inceptions and Tenet? Will he go back into that world? Because it seems like he's suited for kind of that crime thriller world. But we'll see what happens. I think one other thing, when you're judging greatest directors, is Nolan hasn't really... I think about music artists, where some artists, like rock artists or just jazz people, they make the same genre over and over. Each album is the same thing. And so it's tough to go, are they the greatest artists of all time? It's like, well, how are we qualifying that? Because there's some people out there who are very versatile, and they'll jump from this genre to that genre. They'll go classical, then they'll go pop, and but their audience may not be as big because most people want to like what they want to like. Sure. So how are we qualifying greatest artist or filmmaker in this case? Sure. Not just artist. I guess he is an artist.
They're artists.
But can Nolan make a comedy? Is that what it takes to make him the best director? Like, you know, it's again subjective.
Sure. So I would say, especially coming from that perspective of like, okay, where would we define it? So one of the things I did in my James Cameron video, I will link to that in the description, is there is a element of James Cameron that is the best of all time. And the argument I make is that it's blockbuster sci-fi. That's where James Cameron is incredible. Terminator 2 is one of our best movies ever. And so maybe you could say that about, you know, blockbuster sci-fi, it's like he and Nolan are going to be in that same conversation.
Yeah.
But what Nolan does better than James Cameron is grab a character and a depth to their identity that pulls you through the film, through that spectacle, through that blockbuster action, through that science fiction.
Yeah.
Right? Even what you want to say about Interstellar's kind of cheesy aspects, the character-driven story of Matthew McConaughey's character is why you follow that movie so intensely.
Right.
He is absolutely dynamite through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And when he loses it, you feel it.
Yeah.
And like what I mean by that is like the 20 years or whatever it is that he loses.
Yeah, that scene.
It's hard, man. It's really hard, especially now that I'm a dad. Like, holy crud. So, yeah, I think there's an element that Nolan has gotten past in regards to being like the best blockbuster sci-fi you could have. That's delving a little deeper, kind of back to what we were talking about with this like existential idealism of like, oh no, the human brain is experiencing things in a very specific way and in a very broad way all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so what he's doing is he's literally building his films in both of those categories at all times.
Yeah.
And so you're getting something like an Oppenheimer where you get a character study in one side and like literally a historical period drama on the other.
Right.
And they're literally running in tandem until all of a sudden they collide.
Yeah.
Literally like a nuclear bomb, which is so great.
Right.
And so like, yeah, I guess I would say that James Cameron can't do that. All his characters sometimes they're one note. They work in some instances, like in a Terminator 2. He can get some characters right, and there is some interest there, but you can see in like an Avatar where it goes too far in that direction, where it's all sci-fi blockbuster.
Right.
And the characters just kind of feel meaningless sometimes, and the family stuff even gets like undercut.
Yeah.
The further in you go to those movies. So Nolan, I think, does a really good job of keeping us character-centric while still giving us spectacle.
Yeah.
And I think there are other people doing that, like a Denis Villeneuve does that well too. I think Arrival's a great example, or the Dune movies, of course.
Sure.
Anyway, so yeah, I think that might be a great place to stop. It's like, okay, we know he's character-driven, and we know he's blockbuster-driven, and we know he marries those two better than most, if not the best at that. So if we're saying the greatest director of all time can give us, the most compelling character-driven stories with spectacle, that's Nolan.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good.
Cool, man. Yeah, let's try this.
Okay.
Are Nolan's films more optimistic or pessimistic about human nature? So what you could follow that down further is there's kind of an element of we cannot overcome ourselves. So like human existence, human experience cannot be escaped and therefore will fail us.
Mm-hmm.
And in all of his movies, the thing that people have to overcome is themselves. And so is that a negative outlook on what it means to be human? Because another thing he doesn't ever touch on is religion or theology at all. Right. And so how you understand that is it's almost like you have to say, okay, there's a secularism to this, but also there's a real problem at work in regards to we're stuck in our own error, right? Like a Cobb can't get out of his own dreams,
right?
Or does he? Like that's the rub, and we don't know, which is so crazy about that ending because it doesn't matter. And so if you were to pull in a movie that's not Christopher Nolan and say like, okay, are we taking red pill, blue pill with The Matrix? Like, is our human error always making us take the blue pill because we always want to find the opposite of pain? So yeah, what do you think is Nolan's outlook on basically existence as a whole? Like, do you think it's optimistic? Do you think it's pessimistic? It's a hard question.
It's a good question. Maybe before I answer with one of those words, I think Nolan, without being direct about it, actually, he probably is direct about it. Maybe you've heard an interview or two. You're putting into a script, I think as a writer and director, the things that you're wrestling with the most yourself and that you're afraid of yourself. And like, there's a lot of like dead or dying wives in his script. Interesting. Getting back to your kids, losing time with your kids. Ooh, did my decisions just set off a bomb that's going to destroy the world? It's interesting. Just on the surface, I think it's a bit more pessimistic, but with the tone of optimism within that pessimism. Like I don't think it's totally cold.
It's not bleak.
Yeah. I do think I think one of his most bleak films is, I guess you could say Oppenheimer, the ending of that. But Interstellar, I would argue, it's just it's a lonely ending. Tenet maybe, but I mean, you want to talk about an optimistic ending, just satisfying ending, whether or not people think it's high up on the list, because I think most people have it low. The Dark Knight Rises. Mm-hmm. He wraps everything up. He doesn't leave you with a question. The only question you could have, and you can't have it because he answers it, is, oh, is that Robin? He answers it, and then he goes to the Bat Cave, so it's like, oh yeah. But and things are cool. I could argue he maybe went a little over the top with that one. My preference, I think the most Nolan thing he could have done with that is when Alfred's sitting there at the end and he looks across.
You don't see what
and
he's
you hear those
at.
Drums. Yeah. I wish he would have done that so much.
I actually expected that.
Yeah.
I did not expect we would get because he might have shown Anne Hathaway, but I did not expect to see Christian Bale there. I did not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway,
That's its own thing.
That's its own thing.
Yeah.
But put that aside. Again, like I said, I have criticisms of his edits and decisions and acting moments and why'd you leave that in and why didn't you do this? But I'm not him. I do think if I have to answer one or the other instead of just leaning somewhere in the middle, that does lean towards that pessimism. But I think what's behind that is more fascinating is I think his fear of time and Christopher Nolan's inability to escape time and what if this happens, what if I lose this, or the ability to go back, or I can't go forward and actually do something that affects this moment that I just bombed.
Right.
I made a mistake.
Yeah, see, that's what I was getting at, is I actually don't think that's just Nolan. I think that's actually a representation of, I think he's tapped in as an artist into something that's a representation of all human existence. I think we're all fighting that progress, right? We literally can't stop time.
Yeah.
And so what do we do with the time that's given to us, to quote Gandalf, right? Yeah. And so it's like, I think that being represented in the different pieces of the art form, right? Down to the score, the script, the acting choices, when he names a character the protagonist, like even just that, it's like it strips away the humanity and yet still represents a human problem from that character.
Yeah.
So it's like when people are like mad that character's not fully fleshed out, it's like, well, that's not the point.
Yeah.
Right? There's a meta-analysis happening there, which maybe we'll come back to that one because Tenet is such a weird case study. But yeah, so I kind of, I see what you're saying, and I'm saying, yeah, that's how it applies to all of us. Yeah. I think he's literally tapped into a bigger philosophical, existential problem.
Yes.
Which I don't know that I don't know if there's another director that taps into it that well, other than maybe a Denis Villeneuve. Because I think, the Dune franchise is showing us exactly the same thing, right? Paul Atreides is representing that problem of like, oh no, I can't escape my fate of this time that I have to be emperor and kill a bunch of people, which we're about to get later this year. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's great. That was a good answer. So for the sake of time, we'll move on because I think we could go deeper into some of these, but we'll just get into some of the films. Okay, so we now are going to rank Christopher Nolan's films. We're going to walk through them chronologically, give our thoughts, give our back and forth a little bit on each film, and then we'll rank all of them at the end, going as far back as Following. I think this is a really fun, really, simple film, but in regards to what we were talking about earlier, his black and white use is incredible, right? For it to be a first outing, be black and white, not have a ton of exposition like he does later,
right? Just
enough voiceover to get us there. But it's a really intriguing, really nice little thriller.
It is.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I only watched it for the first time like 2 years ago. I'd always been like, oh, I need to go back and watch that and find it. And I finally did, and I really enjoyed it. It's great.
I will also mention, he had made a short film previous to that, which is extremely dreamlike in its choices. Like, it's very ethereal and kind of over the top, and he's actually acting in it. It's weird. It's very weird. It's worth watch. It's not very long, but you can definitely see where some of the sequences that we've already talked about, some with like dream sequences and kind of dilation of time and things like that are prevalent, but it's all identity driven. It's all perspective of the character driven in the short film. And I would say that's true in Following as well, right? You're literally following a person.
Yep.
Talk about a simple title.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm more impressed, even story aside, that like he got it done. Like he went out there and did it. I think filmed it over the course of a year or so on weekends for free. Only had 2 takes because of the cost of film, so they had to memorize all the dialogue. Which I mean, actors, you should work on that anyways. Just shoot your job. But they weren't getting paid. That's the
kicker.
The difference. So I really enjoyed it. I don't have a ton to say about it.
That's okay. Yeah. I think the other thing I'd say is it's interesting that as you're watching a filmography of a certain director, you can start to pick on the things that make them have their own language.
Yeah.
So like in Following, literally the way the camera moves behind the character is actually something he does a lot in his later films. I mean, if you even go back to that opening of Dunkirk, right? Like the way we follow those soldiers kind of harkens back to that initial movie. Even the opening to Dark Knight, you can make some argument that like everything happening behind the character, right? Because you're like over the shoulder, right? Like that, all of that's started in the Following. And so you can kind of pull those through as you go, which, you know, Memento is an interesting flip side from that, because I would say it's not doing that in Memento, but that he's still using the black and white aspects to kind of pull through. Which this is probably, this movie blew my mind the first time I saw it. And it still does. I mean, as a structural just marvel. It's incredible, and there's not really anything wasted in it in terms of time or scenes. And it's just it's incredible. I think this is also where we get not nuance but ambiguity, right? Because Following is ambiguous because it just doesn't tell you a lot, but it doesn't like make an effort to be ambiguous. It just is based on the way it's made. But Memento is like no, he's choosing to be ambiguous. He's saying perspective and subjectivity are the thing, and the reason it's that way is the intriguing part. And so when he gets to the point where he's saying don't listen to his lies, and he crosses it out or whatever, it's like, oh, okay, there's a choice being made here. And so that, I think that's a really cool way to look at it, right? Because as ambiguity develops, we see that play out in different ways in every film. But I think this is the one where, even more so than Inception, it's like embedded through the whole movie. It's not just the ending that's so ambiguous you're not sure what to do. It's literally every scene is like, wait, what is happening? Was this before or after that? Oh, it was before. Oh, we're going backwards in time? How do I make sense of this? And then, of course, you get the interjections of the black and white to help you understand it. Which is why it's cool, but that ambiguity, I think, blossoms here. And that's what makes it so special.
To use the common language, it holds up. It's an excellent film.
Do you have any gripes about it?
The score is my least favorite thing. If I'm going to gripe about something, it's just like synth pad, easy, and I'm like, it feels kind of like 80s action thriller score, but like on the like slow parts of the 80s action movies, when it's slowed down or it's a more emotional part, that's just kind of through the whole thing, and I'm like, do something a little more interesting. It does get more interesting when you go into the black and white moments and he's on the phone. It does that. It's almost like that reverse sound with that little bit of movement. It does get interesting then, but otherwise the score, it picks up a little bit at the end when he's riding in the car with that monologue, and he's like, where he's asking himself the question, do I lie to myself? I forget the exact question, but where he flips everything after you've seen him cross out and write something just to give him a trail to follow.
Yeah, it's interesting. I definitely would give it that incidental feeling, right? It's just, the music is just there as padding.
Yeah.
What's pulling you through the film is the structure and the interest of questioning and ambiguity of what is happening in every scene.
Yeah.
And so that's an intriguing thing based on what we were talking about before, because how he starts to make the music a character and the sound design a character becomes much more important as we get further in his filmography.
Yeah.
So the fact that he probably sees that as a weakness of Memento too is my guess. Because if that's the kind of crux of like, oh, well, what's missing in Memento? It's like, oh, well, there's not really a sound design element that really lifts it, that elevates the art of the rest of the film. And if there had been, it might have taken away from it.
Yeah, it may have. Yeah.
But also, like, he may not have the cash for it. I mean, the capital probably just wasn't there for a really great composer, or,
Or maybe it's exactly what he wanted.
It's possible.
Might be a reason that it's
We should ask
kind
him.
of the same thing. Yeah, give him a call. Wait, he doesn't have a phone.
Right. As far as Memento and Following goes, Memento, I think, is a massive increase in production design and overall quality. I think it goes from like Following, which is just kind of in the pocket, it's solid, to something that's excellent.
Yeah.
If not masterful.
Yeah.
And so then moving on to Insomnia, I think this is even a step further, because the stuff that Al Pacino and Robin Williams had to grapple with in Insomnia is an acting level upgrade, right? They're just perfect in that film together. And the only reason that movie works is because of how good they are. Because I actually think the movie would falter quite heavily if those two performances aren't as good as they actually put out. And again, the unexpected nature of Robin Williams as a bad guy is just so intriguing.
Right.
And he has a depth to him that we didn't get to fully experience, which sucks. But I think this movie is kind of the unsung great film that people don't really remember he did. They don't really think about it as a Nolan film, because I think it's actually his least Nolan-esque film in regards to some of the things that he's got later. Yeah. His color palette's not even really there. It is some, but it's not as pronounced. Very by-the-books crime thriller. Just to like almost prove that he could, is kind of what it feels like.
Yeah, it's. I think there was a question. It's, can he handle a studio budget? That literally, and they tossed it to him
with high-level actors that are really like household names. Yeah. I think he produced it. I mean, I think it's great.
Yeah. And I think from interview I read, or maybe it's from that book, the Nolan Variations. I think he talks about being really proud of that film. Yeah.
One of the things that always sticks with me is the continuous return to the blood in the fabric. Like, I think that visual is so evocative, and so meaningful the more you get on rewatch, right? When you see it again and again, you're like, oh, because like you don't really know what you're seeing the first time, and then as you come back to it, you're like, oh yeah, okay, now I know where that's from. I know what it means. I know what's going on, because it's a representation again of the inescapability of our mortality, right? It's not just it's that this crime has happened. It's like literally, it's poking through, right? His mind is losing it, and it's poking through to this representation of, I have no more time, I'm done. I'm like, it's all that same stuff we were discussing before, all represented in one visual that continues through the whole film, and it's relevant to the actual plot. Yeah, I think it's really cool that it's multi-layered.
So from my memory, I need to go watch it again. It's the one I can talk about the least, probably. But it is the least Nolan film of all his films to me. Like I almost don't even put it in there. I'm like, yeah, he did it, and he had to do it in order to get the keys to other things. And not saying it's a bad film. It's just, when I think of the Nolan catalog, I don't usually go there. But just hearing you talk about it now, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go home and watch it this afternoon.
It's great. Yeah, it's so good. And it doesn't even have to be just because it's Nolan, it's good. It's literally just, if you're in the mood for a crime thriller, that's a movie you could watch and get super satisfied from it. Yeah. It's not only does it give you great character-driven drama, it's also just like a simple crime thriller. Like, oh, this person's dead, why? And these cops have to figure it out. Like, it's that simple. And then you get some really great ideas of like, oh, we're dealing with a lack of representation of daylight versus night time problems. You get this guy at the end of his career that needs to deal with, is he done or not done, and is he capable of still going? Which again is that existential dread that we've been talking about through all his films. So I think it's still got those elements that we've already discussed as what is Nolan.
Yeah.
But it's like tampered down enough that if you were just to catch it as a crime thriller, you wouldn't think twice.
Yeah.
And then there's stuff that's interesting and makes it fun in the manner of movies are fun, not necessarily that it's happy fun. But yeah, so that's what I would just get at, is that I think it's definitely an unsung, kind of underrated Nolan film because of how tampered it is in regards to that spectacle that we get later. Yeah, I think Memento's a little bit better than it. Like, I would definitely still say Memento's a better movie. But that structure is just hard to beat. Insomnia is very straightforward.
Yeah.
And it just uses really creative elements like the Alaskan timeline and things like that to kind of keep it interesting. But yeah, the structure of Memento just still kind of overlays it a bit. Yeah. All right, so with that though, you mentioned this, because he did so well at a crime thriller with a bigger budget, now a studio's like, hey, will you do Batman? And he's like, yep.
Yeah, you got the keys to Batman.
Right.
And gave him a pitch.
And changed the game.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Like, comic book movies were already going realistic with X-Men 1, Spider-Man 1, and they were great, and people really loved them. And so for Nolan to come in and do another superhero, especially a big one like Batman, was so exciting. It's like literally history in the making. I think everybody was just like, oh, this guy's really good at this, and now he's making a Batman.
Yeah.
Like, and who didn't know Nolan, they did after this movie. Yeah. Because it put him as a household name at that point. And it told us what the character of Batman could become, which is like a different, really human-centric thing, which had been done in the comics previous. But I think that's what's just cool about it, is that, again, it's a very simple plot. It's not that complex in regards to something like Memento.
Yeah.
But it's like, it works really well because it stripped it down and said, no, this is a character story, and that's what we're going to do. Yeah. And we're going to show him overcome some obstacles and become Batman. And it's like, so we're just going to call it the simplest name we can call it, which is Batman Begins.
Kind of an origin story.
That's right.
It's great.
With some great visuals, too.
I love the opening of that film. Just the training, all that, climbing the mountain, fighting on the glacier. It's that whole opening is incredible, and him showing the non-linear stuff in a different way, because Memento is just set up to run these two tracks that intercut, that meet you in one spot. But this one, it eventually becomes linear, but it starts with non-linear to go, oh, here's Bruce Wayne, here's what he's going through.
There's an old adage that people do when you're either writing a book or a screenplay, where you say, you write up to a certain point and then you have something happen, and whatever that is gets it to be interesting. And so the idea is like, oh, you just cut everything out before that and you actually start on the interesting thing. Yeah. And I think that's what he was doing here is he probably wrote it all linearly and then was like, oh wait, if I can cut out half an hour if I just intercut the training sequences with his like, where he's at right now. Which like starting with him in a prison is like so weird, because you're like, wait, what? Because like you're coming in to see Bruce Wayne, who's like this rich, famous dude. Everybody knows who Batman is and what he is. And so to put him in a position where he's literally not who he is, and he has to become that over the whole movie, but by doing it non-linearly at first, I think is a really effective screenplay technique.
Yes. And to go forward to, excuse me, I'm thinking non-linearly right now, seeing young Bruce fall down in a pit, and he's in a prison. And that's ultimately where we get to in The Dark Knight Rises, is you marry those two geographical locations into one, and it's like, here we are again, back at the beginning. What are you going to do?
Right.
Like, it's, this was my first Christopher Nolan film to see. I hadn't seen Insomnia. I didn't know about Memento. I certainly didn't know about The Following. And that's what put him on the map for me. And I was like, ooh, naturally he's going to make a sequel next. So I started keeping an eye out for that. It's going to be another Batman, right? Joker's going to be in it because of the ending. Well, it's not what happened next. It was another film. But I don't want to...
No, you're okay. We can segue. I think I was just going to double tap on, we had a moment of like comic book movie resurgence that he capitalized on, but also was the producer of like, hey, no, like these can be gritty and realistic. Yeah. And maybe that's to the detriment, right? Because there's been some things that have taken place since then that have like, oh, maybe that was actually a problem. But But what's really cool is we got this really great trilogy. Like, I'd say that these 3 Batman movies are one of the best trilogies of all time.
Yeah.
Like, definitely in the conversation. Probably top 10, if not top 5. They're that good.
Yeah.
And The Dark Knight lifting most of that, which we'll come back to. But it's just like, I think that's important to recognize that he was coming off of 3 really inconsequential movies. No one had really, like, they were small. They didn't make lots of money.
Yeah.
And they weren't, like, zeitgeist building films. The
Right.
Memento thing was good in the critic space, but not necessarily household space, right? Not the general public didn't know who he was or what he was doing, and then all of a sudden he makes a Batman movie, and everybody loves Batman, so they're like, "What?" Boom!
Yeah.
You have this like stardom that you'll never leave because you keep nailing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's good, and I definitely think there's more we could talk about in regards to his style and the way he deals with time, but I think we can move on from there because I think you nailed literally just you can look at the first act of that film and go, "Oh, okay, this is Nolan."
Yeah.
Like, that's simple.
Yeah.
Even the blues and grays are like prominently, like that glacier shot is just awesome.
Yeah.
Like just flying over it. I mean, just literally the location glacier shot. It's like, what?
I think you also use that area in Insomnia.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, good job, location scout. All right. So, going straight into that then is probably one of my favorite movies, and this is actually what put me on Nolan. So Batman Begins, I didn't realize it was Nolan. And I had actually seen Memento, but I didn't know it was Nolan either. So, like, I hadn't put directors in my head yet.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking art. I was just like, oh, this is cool. I think this is crazy.
Sure.
Prestige is what put him on the map for me. And I actually saw it and The Illusionist, which came out the same year. Which I don't know if you've seen that Evan Norton film.
The Prestige is what solidified Nolan for me. Batman Begins made me interested. I'm going, okay, hopefully he's going to make another one, but he made Prestige. And I went, oh, well, and it's got Christian Bale, got to go see it. Blown away by the Prestige. And it just took the top spot. Like, I mean, it was my favorite film for the longest time.
Right.
And it's still up there. But
Agreed.
There's nothing wasted in it. It's incredible.
It's also, and again, we're harping on a lot of the same things, but that's because he's so single-minded in the way that he presents his art. But this movie gives it gives you the answers to its mystery right in plain sight. So that's a number one of like, wait, because technically Memento does the same thing. Another thing it does is it gives you a little bit of nonlinear qualities to kind of do the whole like magician sidestepping mentality. But then it also gives you character-driven, identity-driven drama that doesn't overwhelm you and feels realistic in regards to their relationship for revenge, in regards to their relationship with like his marriage, and like why is it not working, in regards to Michael Caine's character, how he's interacting with things, like the way the lady dies in the tank, like all of these relationships are strained and none of them are resolved, but that is what pulls me through the film, right? Is this like, it's like ambition coupled with tragedy.
Yeah.
And that's again back to what we were talking about with pessimism versus optimism, right? Because it's a very pessimistic outlook on the desire for being successful.
It's a cold film.
But like that desire for being successful, that we could even say like the Western mentality of like ambition is always good.
Yeah.
And like that question is huge in that film because it's like, well, what do they lose?
Yeah.
Oh, literally they can lose themselves.
Right.
And then they can end up killing themselves and still gaining that success.
Is Tesla right with the machine when he's giving over? He's like, if I can encourage you to do one thing, it's destroy this. Don't use it.
Right. Which, shout out to David Bowie.
Yeah.
That was a great role.
Dude, yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of what I was getting at. Is I think there's an underlying depth that comes from the tension between their decisions they're making and the world that they live in. Because even at one point, he's pounding on the wall and saying, you have to break free of all of this, which is a complete, and if you want, you can take it even as a meta-analysis on like Nolan trying to break free of his art form. Because the movie is pretty straightforward, right? Except it's using the magician structure.
Through their journals and diaries.
Right, yeah. Which is so creative and clever, and is why I think it can be long and still doesn't feel long.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm getting at, is I think maybe there's a little bit of a commentary on him, on his own limitation as an artist, being like, hey, I'm kind of stuck. Like, how do I break out of this studio system mentality? How do I break out of like what requires me to do certain things with, you know, whatever. Like, you could get as simple as like the lighting versus the color palette versus whatever, because I think that, you know, that's all still developing at this point, right? He's still building that, and he still had things he was leaning towards, but I wouldn't say it had coalesced, because I would say Dark Knight and Inception are where his like style really solidifies.
Sure.
And I think this was the prep for that. I mean, do you agree with that?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. This film, it's probably more buried for a lot of people than even Memento is at this point. Because I think Memento gained such a cult following.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the Prestige is still kind of buried, which is just wild to me.
Mm-hmm.
When conversations I have with people, like, oh yeah, I've seen Memento, I've heard of it. Prestige, like, oh, I saw The Illusionist. I'm like, go watch The Prestige.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
No, it did something. It's a reminder that Nolan is an artist. That film, because with Batman, Dark Knight, all that, even Inception, you're tempted to go, oh, blockbuster guy. But Prestige rode this line of like kind of staying behind the curtain, if you will,
nice.
like this art film. Yeah. Yeah, but it's done in like just such a beautiful, like tight-knit, close way. Yeah. It's one of his, I feel like it's one of his films where you get close to multiple characters. Like, a lot of times you're just focused on one, but I feel like you're kind of in the room, even with how they shoot it and the dialogue and some of those sequences when they're backstage and all that. It's a very intimate film. Yeah, maybe more so than many of his others. Yeah.
That's interesting, because I would say Oppenheimer still reaches that intimacy.
I agree with that.
Yeah, but again, that's a single character's story, which I think I said earlier. It's like you're coupling that against the period drama. So it's like, but you know, the whole other timeline is just his story. It's his perspective. So yeah, that's intriguing, because I think I agree with you. I think the intimacy is a good word for that film. Even just like from, you know, the death of the wife to, you know, the ending where it's just the two of them looking at each other, and like, you know, Hugh Jackman's character's like, you know, what do you mean, or whatever. Like, he doesn't understand. Yeah. And that's the crux. It's like the guy is always one step ahead of him, and he can't stand it. Yeah. Which, that's just a simple person-to-person thing. It doesn't need to be any bigger than that. Yeah. And then it is bigger than that, because you as an audience member get to see this magic trick across these three acts that works as a 3-act structure, and literally tells you as a 3-act structure outright, which is so just beautiful. It works so well. But yeah, I agree with you there, man. It's definitely not talked about enough as a great film, and I think it kind of got shafted with awards, in my opinion. But that was also prior to, you know, more movies being Best Picture and stuff like that. Plus, it was Jean Moran. Yeah.
And shout out to Christian Bale's performance in that as the twins and those subtleties. I think Prestige is the most rewarding, arguably, rewatch. I don't know if I'm jumping the gun on a question you're going to ask later.
Yeah, I was going to ask that later.
Okay. That's okay. I'll think about that again, but it's...
Because I have a different one. Yeah. That's good.
I'll think.
Okay, yeah. All right. So from The Prestige, we've now proven that Nolan's the big-time director. He's a household name at this point, because he's made Batman and then coupled it with a great film afterwards. Then he literally gets the keys to the kingdom, because like now he can make whatever he wants, and he makes a deal with Warner Brothers to literally go and do another Batman film, but no, I want to make my own film also. And that gets us the 1-2 punch of Dark Knight and Inception, which is like probably one of the greatest 1-2 punches of a filmographer, or like at all, ever. Like, it's literally such, like, they're both cultural moments. Oh, yeah. Not just because of Heath Ledger, not just because, like, it's another Batman film, but literally it's like both of them turned the cultural zeitgeist, like, on fire. Yeah. And they both have their own ways they did that. They both deal with huge ideas and, like, these interesting themes. And the reason I'm coupling them together is because that's how he got them both made. Is because he had basically unlimited budget. He basically could do whatever he wanted, because Batman Begins was so successful. So it's like, okay, you're going to make The Dark Knight. Go for it. And then, of course, you're going to do the Joker. Of course, you're going to, get the ability to do these big set pieces, right? And then on top of that, you write something that's, again, character and identity driven, with the stylistic integrity that Nolan's developed and then coalesces at this moment. Because I think this is like the biggest pinnacle of his career, which is these two films. Not that it's gone down. Sure. I just think this was the peak of his rise. And then now it's kind of like, it's like just slightly up. It's not like skyrocket.
Yeah, he's riding it.
Yeah. and doing super well. Don't want to take away from that, but we might have a spike with Odyssey because it sounds like people are loving it. Is there anything with The Dark Knight that, like, you know, you just feel like, oh, okay, no, if I was gonna, you know, talk about this film and review it, like, this is what I would want to say?
Not that Batman Begins didn't have the score. I think the score is perfect for Batman Begins, but where I'm getting with this is this was his first film where it's let's go massive. And I don't mean that just because of the IMAX, because he didn't use IMAX on Inception, and I think there's some intentional reasons why he didn't use that. But I mean, the opening sequence of the bank robbery and all that opening shot, I know everybody talks about it, but I remember sitting in the theater opening night, and that opening shot when it just opens up in that building, and I've never experienced an opening shot like that, and just pushing all the way into the window, exploding. It just massive. Like he just went, I'm gonna elevate the game here, which is what the Joker does, and then what Batman has to do. It's like, oh, it's escalation, it's elevation, and Nolan did that with this film, and with Inception in a different way, and Zimmer matched that, the big drums and doing stuff with instruments and sounds that people hadn't done before. Right. It's an incredible piece of work. I think it has, significant might be too strong a word, I think it has some flaws in it. Sure. That maybe bother me more than some of his other films when we get to the third act. But I love the scale of it. And I don't think it's, Heath Ledger is incredible, but I don't think it's talked about enough how incredible Christian Bale is in it. I think there are a lot of memes going around, and I'm Batman, you know, all the things, but good. Yeah. I'm like, it's incredible. And despite how I feel about the third act as a whole, the ending, the final couple minutes there between Gordon and Batman and decisions and the monologue and the ending, it's one of the greatest endings to a film. It's one of the coolest openings to a film, but the ending is incredible. So it's just, it's massive. And it opens up in broad daylight, right? And this thing going on in broad daylight, and it ends with Batman having to go into the shadows. Like, yep. Yeah, anyways.
What is the, like, in short, maybe, what is the, like, couple of gripes you have with the third act?
It moves really quick out of a moment when Rachel dies. Tough deal not having your same actress come back. But put that aside, just from a story perspective, it moves real quick when Bruce is grieving with his helmet thing off and sitting there, and Alfred has the letter, doesn't give him to him yet, and then we move pretty quickly into another Joker thing, and that might be part of Nolan's point. I think he makes his decisions intentionally, but it moves fast, and in a way that loses some of its believability, for lack of a better word. Like, that's such a hard acting job and quick shift for Aaron Eckhart, and the shift he has to do to Two-Face. It's so quick, and then we're just moving because it's like, oh, well, we got to get through the film now. And it hits a point of redundancy isn't quite the right word to me, but it's like, I get it. It's another Joker thing. I start to feel it a bit. And then the acting from our people in the boat scene at the end, it takes me out. Fair enough. And I'm like, it was a little too much. However, everything going on with Batman and Joker is excellent. It's outside of that. And I think once we get to that final moment, though, with Two-Face standing there and Gordon and like, no, punish me, no, I'm about to. That once we get to that moment at the end, I think it comes together again in a good way. But it's, I question some of the editing and pacing and just trying to get through something, trying to fit in maybe a little too much of a character flip, but it's still an incredible film. Yeah. It's just, it weakens it quite a bit.
I think,
to me.
I agree with you a little bit, because I think that the Aaron Eckhart, Harvey Dent, Two-Face character is the too much weight. I think if you didn't have him in this movie at all, then that last act would have just cooked. Yeah. You know, like, it wouldn't have bogged itself down. And I wonder why they felt like they needed to bring Two-Face in, because like, I wonder if Christopher Nolan really didn't want to do a fourth film, and that's why. It's like, no, I have this idea for Two-Face. I have Aaron Eckhart. I have to do this.
Yeah.
Because, like, I could have seen them using him as the third villain instead of Bane and Ra's al Ghul again, which I think is a great choice because it's a cool trilogy caption, if you will. But that's where I feel like it bogs itself down, is by adding that character, you get all of this extra stuff that doesn't allow us time with the character we were there to see, which is to find out why he becomes the Dark Knight.
Right. But I think the believability of like Two-Face and that switch, I actually think it would have worked better had he been like sad and just distraught and kind of turned into this crazy man, because half your face is burned off. You're not just going to walk around cool after that. You wouldn't be able to look at, when you think about psychologically what that would do to you, but you just kind of became this angry guy, and he is distraught. My wife's pushed back on me a little bit in regards to this, but I'm like, again, tall order, and I think it would have made the film too dark for him to go in the direction that I actually think a character like that would have gone. I think it would have tipped it arguably past a PG-13 point to do what I think that character,
which at the time he wasn't willing to do,
right,
and maybe the studio wasn't either.
Yeah. And I think shout out, and it's fine, he's moved on from that, but like King of PG-13, that's actually one of the reasons I love him, is he found a way to push the boundaries without crossing that line, which made intensity and darkness accessible to the world, which is a interesting thing, and I'd kind of like to see him come back there at some point. But
sure,
it's fine. It's fine.
Well, so let's move on to Inception, because I think Dark Knight for me is I actually don't have as much gripes with the third act as you do, but I think it is a masterpiece. I think it sits at the top of our pantheon of movies. It's really, really good, and I'd say Inception is better. I actually think Inception is his best film. I think it's one of the best paced. I think it's one of the best structured. I think it's one of the most interesting. I think it's one of the highest concept sci-fi things we've ever gotten in. Yeah, there's a little bit of exposition dump that's a little over the top.
Yeah, a little bit.
But I just eat it up. It's my most rewatchable. It's like literally, it is what solidified Nolan for me as one of my favorite directors. Because when I saw, I talked about Inception for years, and I literally argued with people about it for years. I haven't stopped arguing with people about it, about what it means, what happened at the end, what it actually was going on throughout the film, what parts are real and what parts aren't. And that again goes back to what we were talking about before, is because when you start getting philosophical about it, it does represent everything we've talked about so far, and it does it in multiple characters even. So you get these character identity drama things that you got before, but like it's in multiple spaces over multiple times with multiple people. And it's like a great ensemble cast. The score is incredible. Like there's just so much there.
Yeah.
So and with all that said, I'm curious what you think about it. Because a lot of people I definitely think it's overrated. But I just don't.
No, it's incredible. I remember again, opening weekend, and walking out and talking to other people, including the people I was with, not all of them, but some of them, and them going, man, like, I don't really know what happened. I'm kind of confused, or like blew my mind. I'm like, blew your mind is different than confused. I was like, there's nothing to be confused about. I say that intentionally. He executed such a complicated concept so well that it's actually not confusing at all. Right. Tenet, if you walk out of that and go, I'm confused, fine. Because it's a paradox, which is, anyways, we'll come back to that. We'll come back to that. But like, I'm like, that's the beauty of Inception, is that when I go back to it, I'm still blown away in that I go, he pulled it off. He did it. And I say that more to that film than any of his other films, because original idea took him a decade to figure out how to get it right and write it, get the clout and the budget for it to do it how he wanted to do it. And I love it.
Yeah, there's a lot at work in just the fundamental ideas that are present, right? So like the idea of what Inception is something that people like don't understand. We don't know where ideas come from. Like science can't explain consciousness, they can't explain interest, they can't explain ideas. And there are many ways we could go with this, but like Inception is literally how do you control an idea?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's like, it's deceptive. And that's because humans have to grapple with the fact that the only way that they can incept somebody, which wasn't a verb before that movie, I don't think. It probably was, but no one used it. The only way they can do that is through deception. And the only way they can deceive him is by making him think it was his idea. That is crazy big.
Yeah.
Like, that is so mind-blowing in just itself.
Yes.
And then you got a whole massive movie with a structure and characters and action and time dilation and like all of that stuff
all the sets,
layered on top of it.
The score.
Yeah. Like, it's
everything.
incredible that it's possible. So, yeah, I think I could talk about that movie for an entire video of just like, hey, like these are the philosophical ideas that I think it promotes and also critiques.
Yeah.
And then of course it's funny you mentioned it's like Tenet being a paradox. This is where I think he got the idea.
Yeah.
Right? Inception gave him the opportunity to start thinking about paradoxes and why they work and don't work.
Mm-hmm.
Because now all of a sudden he's working in a dream space. For real.
Yeah.
Which is funny to say that. Dreams for real. Anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is implication there again on how we exist within our own world and how we deal with that personally. And then whether or not we use deception to get to others, or if that's even right. Like the ethical implications of Inception are just so massive. That's our term.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what Christopher Nolan is massive. Ooh,
yeah.
I should be careful about that. All right, so I don't have a lot to say about Dark Knight Rises. It is definitely on my lower end of his films because it's so straightforward and just it feels like a rehash of Dark Knight.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it. Doesn't mean I didn't have a lot of fun with it. Doesn't mean that like I love the character of Bane. I think he's great, even though you can't understand him half the time. So it's like, and there's some really great things at work there. I found it very satisfying. I didn't hate the ending. The first time I saw it, I was like kind of bummed that it was like so clean. Yeah. Because I agree with you. I didn't need to see Christian Bale at the end. Yeah. Just him looking up was way cleaner of like a ooh. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Fan cut is 30 seconds shorter. So anyway, any major thoughts or gripes about Dark Knight Rises?
I think it's a worse film than Dark Knight and Batman Begins, but I enjoy watching it more than Dark Knight. But that's partly because of like you get to the point of hope, right? I don't always want to be beaten down by a crime thriller. It's like, and shout out to my wife. Her favorite movies are the Dark Knight trilogy, so we watch them twice a year. She loves Dark Knight Rises in particular, which makes me love it more because I love seeing her love that. But no, it's not perfect. It kind of rushes that second, third act, saying that he goes into the pit and it's like, he should be suffering more. But it moves pretty quickly and then he gets out and it's like, okay, we ran out of time to execute all of Nolan's ideas.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, so a common problem there. I enjoyed it. But from an execution standpoint, it would fall lower. But we'll get to that in a minute.
Sure. Yeah. So if we do move on, the ideas that are present in Inception that I was talking about, I think get further promoted in a movie like Interstellar. And I don't know that I love Interstellar. I like Interstellar. Mm-hmm. I am a sucker for space sci-fi. I'm a sucker for time travel stuff. But there's something that doesn't root me in that same depth of character and same existentialness that is still present in Interstellar, but it doesn't root me as much as it did in the previous movies. Like, there isn't a gripping nature to it that I had other than the spectacle. Like, the spectacle is what kind of pulled me through that film. Even just the visual representation of a fifth dimension, which is still not even accurate to what scientists would probably consider as a fifth dimension, is a great spectacle. Yeah. But in the context of the film, it doesn't land as powerfully as I think I would hope it would. Mm-hmm. But again, still made really well, still super ambitious. It's kind of clunky in some of the dialogue, but in some of the character names, like, oh man, he is humanity. But like a Matt Damon cameo halfway through a film is pretty great. And there's a lot of good stuff that happens in the movie. But yeah, that's kind of my overall feelings towards Interstellar, is that it's good, but it's not a masterpiece.
Yeah. I'm with you. I like it. I'll say this. It is it's not at the top of my list. It's probably not even close to the top of the list, but it is still actually my favorite IMAX experience of his.
Okay.
More than any of the other films. And I think a lot of that's due to the space, like outer space and space that he gives in moments when it's not exposition heavy. And the score and what Zimmer did with that is incredible. So sitting there and the docking sequence in IMAX and then going to the black hole, and that in IMAX is one of the most incredible things. Blown away.
I will give you that because, the concept of using an organ, which is an instrument that requires space, that uses physics, and also is built to fill a large area on purpose in a divine quality, if you will, is that's a real choice. Because again, Christopher Nolan does not deal in religion, but to use an organ in representation of a massive view or look into the larger universe definitely has implications, in my opinion. I definitely think there's this, because organs being built for the reason they're being built is mostly out of a religious context. It's not only, but it mostly is, and that's where they're used mostly now. And so to use that in regards to seeing these large pieces of the universe could necessarily lean towards this idea of an artistic beauty, potentially a created artistic beauty. And that is a weird juxtaposition that gets played off there that never is talked about in the film. And I'm not sure what Christopher Nolan's religion is or anything, but I do think it's intriguing that they would choose, him and Zimmer would choose the organ to represent the spheres. Right? That is what's so neat, is because if you go back to Plato and you talk about the music of the spheres, right? Literally he's not talking about actual music. He's talking about the existence of the soul, and the spheres being the existence of the heavens, but heavens being the universe. And so I think it's playing more in that Platonic viewpoint, but it's not necessarily only there because of the implication of an organ. And if maybe they just thought it sounded cool, but I don't think so. I think it's meant to, and we're going to go back to the score again, I think it's massive on purpose. They picked the biggest instrument to show the biggest things. And they were trying to expand it. I mean, literally the title is Interstellar.
Yes, and that next to just a simple piano, the intimacy of that relationship, father-daughter.
Exactly. Which again, goes back to our, he's good at character-driven versus spectacle. Literally marrying the two.
I have to say my one thing. I won't get into critiquing maybe some acting decisions and too much dialogue, but I have to lean on the end in the Tesseract a little bit. I think Nolan broke something that he normally doesn't break in it, and it does bother me, is he gave us the answer. So in the end, when he's working through the Tesseract, he lands kind of in a couple places with what his resolution, or how is this working, how does it work, and it eventually gets to, we built this thing, that's how it works, and from the future, and all of a sudden Nolan introduces an idea not really fleshed out in the rest of the film. It's kind of pointed out once or twice, and all of a sudden goes, here's the answer. And I'm like, you didn't have to give us an answer in that moment. Because he doesn't always do that. He leaves you with more of a question. And I feel like he tried to give too much of an answer when maybe he just should have gone,
What was the answer specifically you're talking
about? The conclusion that he comes to in the Tesseract is, he's like, they built this. They let us here. He's like, no, wait, it was us. We built this. We let it here from the future. And it's like, hold on, we're not in Tenet. We're not talking about future things yet. They do reference future once or twice in the film previously, but it kind of, I think he tries to land a plane when it's like, I don't think you had to land it. Let there be a little bit of that open space. A new idea was introduced to kind of get him out of the Tesseract. And it's like, I don't know, maybe don't do that. But again, that's probably what hangs me up in the film from it.
I think that's fair. I think there's definitely an implication there that if we made it, are we gods? Which again is harkening back to a religion that, or a potential theology, or whatever you want to call his philosophical outlook on human existence.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I think you can talk a lot about these ideas based on how well he crafts his films, because that implication that it is us, right, negates a lot of other implications.
Right.
And so I think that closed door does harken to something of like, oh, wait, we don't know. And so if we don't know, and no one knows, then how can Nolan know?
Right.
And so him giving us this truth, which is something that happened in Steven Spielberg's Disclosure Day recently. It's like, if he's giving us the truth in his art form, and he makes a decision that isn't necessarily in line with what we believe, then it's gonna rub.
Right.
And I think that I agree with you. I think that lessens its power.
Yeah.
As an art. Yeah.
Yeah.
But not so much that it's bad or anything. Just that it does lessen that impact a bit.
Yeah. The irony is we're most limited by ourselves, which I think again is something and we all wrestle with, is we don't want to be limited by ourselves. We want to be able to accomplish everything and not make any mistakes ever and get it wrong, and we don't want to die.
Oh, great!
Yeah.
Not dying. That is great. That
I think Interstellar is arguably his most bleak film.
Sure, and I liked your word of lonely, because it definitely is a weird ending. Because you're like, oh, you're kind of just left like, ugh, after this huge spectacle.
Yeah.
And that's what, again, kind of leaves you this weird taste in your mouth.
Yeah.
Versus an Inception or a Dark Knight Rises, where even Dark Knight's bleak ending, but it doesn't leave you with that weird taste in your mouth, because it gives you something. Yeah. It's like, oh, Batman figured it out. So it's hopeful. He's going to go forward, and he's going to beat Two-Face, and he's going to, or Two-Face dies, never mind. But he's going to beat Gotham, it's evil, or it's whole, by being its evil, which is such a great flip. Yeah. Anyway, so okay, cool. So Interstellar, with its problems, I still think is a good film. I don't think it's made poorly in any way. Actually, I think that the screenplay or the dialogue might be its weakest point.
And he came into that. It was already started without him, so we have to remember some of that too. Sure. He requested changes if he was a part of it, but he was still working with something that was already cooking. You show up in someone else's kitchen, it's like, oh, this is what you have to work with. Okay, right. I would prefer this, and this. So we don't know how much that affected it.
Sure, but probably a lot.
Yeah,
man. All right, so I actually think you could say that Dunkirk is one of the best World War II films ever made, and anybody asks me oh, what should I watch when it comes to World War II films, most of the time I'm going to say Saving Private Ryan, even though it has its own weaknesses. But I think my second one is Dunkirk, which is crazy to even think about. So it's just a really interesting thing that we're not that far removed from such a crazy story, and it's such a good representation of faith in humanity and of community, which is not something you get, except maybe a little bit in the build-ups in the Batman movies, maybe a little bit in Inception, because it's an ensemble that has hope together, even though it's all built on deception. This is the one that deals with hope on a grand scale, in direct relation to time, because of the structure of the way it plays out. And I think that forgoing all of even just the technical aspects of the film being a marvel, with the practical effects, with the real planes, which P-51s in real life, that's amazing. They literally flew those planes over them in camera, which is just so good.
That first shot of those three planes.
Yes. And the sound, the literal
You
sound.
and I saw that in IMAX together. That was my second viewing
yes,
of
we
it.
did.
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah. So it's but even just that sound design of using the actual plane sounds is so gripping and evocative and real and visceral.
Yes.
To couple that with the clock ever going, and to couple that with the score that's using what's the scale called?
The palindrome.
Well, it's a palindromic scale, but it's called a scale. It's an ever rising scale in music theory, and I cannot remember the title of it, but it's literally always moving up, based on the way that it never resolves. And so that creates a tension from a foundational point, because humans want resolution and we never get it. And in a course of a war, you're never going to get that resolution. And so it's so well made. I would say up to this point, we've had really I'd say Inception's a masterpiece. I say Dark Knight's a masterpiece. I think this is the best craft he had across all domains, and I would still call it a masterpiece. Like, it's literally, he took the elements we were talking about where it's like, oh, he hasn't really lifted the score. He lifted it. The elements of sound design, he lifted it. The color palette, he lifted it. The acting, he lifted it. But the acting is ensemble. There's no one person that sticks out, which is so crazy that it works still. Like, there's just all these things that just, like, elevate it. And then you get this kind of uneasiness throughout the whole thing, and then it's over. And you're just like, wait, what? But again, the war wasn't over, so why would we get any kind of resolution? We wouldn't. Right. It's brilliant. Right. It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. Seeing it the first time, I walked out, and I was like, I've got to process this more. I know what I just watched was incredible, but I don't know where this falls to me. For me, in Nolan movies, because it broke something for me in what I come to expect in Nolan films. Then we went to see it in IMAX. I remember walking out of that. I didn't say it to you at the time, but I walked out and went, it might be the best movie I've ever seen. That's what I walked out with the second time. I think, I'll just say this, because I could go on and on about Dunkirk, but what I love about it, and I didn't have the language immediately, but I went, why do I love this so much? And I'm like, oh, it's a modern day silent film.
Sure.
And I was like, that's because I watch it. I've maybe watched it more than any of his other films. Dark Knight trilogy aside, especially with
twice
my
a year.
wife. But I've probably watched it most. Now, part of that's like an hour 40. It's shorter, but there's something that draws me to it, wanting to sit in that space, confined for a little bit, with the people on screen. But it's it's incredible. I'll leave it at that. I won't get into dissecting right now for the sake of time.
Again, I think we could do a whole video on just the amazing, like, the production as a whole is just so mind-boggling.
You're
the
right.
amount of people,
Craft
the practical sets, the literal boats and planes that are being broken and, burned and all the stuff, man. It's really incredible. Okay, so moving on to what is my least favorite of his films, but only because of the sound design. Not because I don't like the sci-fi, not because I don't think that the reverse action is mind-bogglingly cool, because I do. They crashed a freaking plane. It's awesome. They bought a 747 to crash it into a building because it was cheaper than doing it in computer graphics. That's pretty awesome. And like only a Nolan could pull that off. And I would love to make a movie where I get to crash something, which maybe we will one day. The idea of using the sound to take away from other things, or to at least overcome other things, was the wrong choice for me. And it takes me out of the movie every time, and it pulls me away from what like is interesting about what's happening, which is that paradoxical timeline, circular nature. And even with what I consider to be, a really intriguing concept, and I think it's actually at the same level as Inception and Interstellar, like where it's using this big idea that's actually effectively conveyed on screen. I just can't get past that sound design. I literally just can't. And I also feel like the tension set up in the first scene that we got prior to the movie coming out. I remember sitting in some big movie and seeing that first opening, where they storm the auditorium. Yeah, like it's so good. Like that is quintessentially the way he builds tension, the way he plays through it, because they're searching for that bomb, all that stuff. It's really good, but I just felt left wanting more after that. And so as the movie progresses, it gets more complicated, and then you start having trouble hearing stuff, which again might have been the theater, my experience. But I have seen it since, and it's improved because I could control the sound more, like on my own speakers and things. But I think overall, I get frustrated. I come out of that movie frustrated versus something like an Inception where you feel satisfied even though you're ambiguous. Yeah. Right? So I think it's, again, he's turning up dials on his elements, and those literally sound dial. But sometimes, literally, he's turning the knobs or moving the sliders up on these different elements of the films that, push us to extremes, which I want him to do. I do not want him to stop doing that, because I think it gives us stuff that, like, the fact that I'm frustrated with the sound design thing presented to me as an audience member, I hold this in higher regard than I think I did, right? So even as an artist, he's like helping me learn more about myself, which is cool. Yeah. And so I don't think Tenet's a bad movie. I actually think it's really cool sci-fi blockbuster. I just don't think it's I think it's like very mid, maybe even leaning towards lacking for me, which is my first lower review level.
Yeah.
So yeah, thoughts on Tenet?
Yeah, I've been a big advocate for Tenet, like from the get-go. But again, I think a little bit differently because I've edited and done sound design for years, and I like to push.
Yep.
But so when I initially saw the movie, the opening sequence was incredible. Despite I was like, the dialogue is muffled because they're wearing masks. I was like, is this another Bane situation? But they don't stay in that long. And then they move. He takes the pill. All of a sudden, he wakes up on a boat. And he's with the guy who also happens to be in Insomnia. He's with him on the boat, and they're standing on the outside and talking. He's like, I have a word for you, Tenet. But in that moment, the waves and the sound of the boat were so loud, and I was like, this is a problem. And I felt it in that moment. And when I watched the movie again, which I've watched it a dozen times, that moment still bothers me. After that, the rest of the film, the sound doesn't bother me at all, because in all those moments, you can hear the levels changing on purpose, because it's more about the characters and where they're looking in the room, looking for detectors and this and that. They're observing the space, and the dialogue does not matter. And I know that bothers people. But so yeah, my only instance with the dialogue and sound balance is the opening in that scene where he's literally talking to him about the word Tenet in a setup. I'm like, okay, tone down the background noise on this, but outside of that, I'm like, you're along for the ride is what I feel. To me, it's probably his weakest ending. I love Tenet, but it's kind of, it goes out with a fizzle, and I think that's part of it. It's about the bomb that didn't go off. I mean, that's the dialogue at the end, and it's just next to Cannon Place Street where they're walking away, and it's just okay. Yeah, Again, it was intentional, even though you're wanting something a little more spectacle-esque at the end, kind of like you got at the beginning. But I love Tenet. I don't think it's not his best executed movie to me, but I do love Tenet.
Yeah. I think it begs the question of when he oversteps his own idea, right? So like, when is it cooking and when is it not cooking? Is it frustrating even? Me personally, this one does lean towards frustration versus like an Inception where it's just like so tight and so structured well that it works. Because I think the structure even hurts Tenet because it's like so convoluted because it has to be, because it's paradoxical. And so it just like, the idea almost eats itself, right? Like it's literally Ouroboros in that way. And so I find there are cool things in it, but they're hurt by themselves almost. Yeah. No, I hear that. I do want to say shout out, because it is my favorite aspect of the movie. It's actually Robert Pattinson's character Neil. I think he's incredible in the scenes, and he does something and brings this balance. And part of it is he knows things obviously ahead of time, which you get right from the beginning. But I love their exit and their kind of closing dialogue and him walking away. His character is incredible to me. It's one of my favorite Nolan characters. I think I agree. I think he actually is the glue for that film. And it doesn't work. It's kind of like what I was saying, like if Al Pacino and Robin Williams don't do as good of a performance, then the movie suffers. I think it's the same situation. I think that's something that we haven't really touched on a lot is, one of the things that's kind of a prevailing opinion, somebody like John Campea says this all the time, but like the first job of a director is to get a good acting performance. And something that we haven't ever said is that there's been bad performances in his movies except from extras and small-time supporting characters. Which, again, you work with what you got. And, sometimes he eliminates that possibility by just, like, having nobody talk, like in Dunkirk. And then his ensemble casts, though, are always top-notch. They always put out good performances. And maybe they're not always Oscar-worthy, but they're always good. It is never a lacking quality in his films. Which is a really cool thing to have, because that's going to be that would tank his big ideas is if the people can't send it. Because like even Anne Hathaway using really clunky dialogue to talk about love still is great acting. Like she kills it in that moment. She's just working with really weird sounding dialogue. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out because I think I agree with you that Robert Pattinson's role is what keeps you moving
Yeah.
really nicely, because he's so intriguing the whole time.
And he's not in it much, but when he shows up, you're kind of like, oh, okay, like, cool, we're good, we're moving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, we could probably delve further, but
Sure.
so yeah, you know, last but not least being Oppenheimer, which again won Best Picture, Best Director. It didn't get cinematography, right? I don't know.
No, it did.
It did. Okay. Yeah. See, that's what I thought. So, you know, 3 of the big 5 being literally, and then the others nominated.
Actor, Best Supporting as well.
Screenplay, all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, and it's very intriguing to place that in everything we've talked about, because it is the most prestige drama movie he's made.
Right. Yeah.
Which again feels so grounded. Like, it doesn't ever feel so off the cuff like Interstellar or Tenet or Inception. Like these sci-fi things that are big ideas. No, it's a big science fiction idea that became reality. Oppenheimer does a really good job of grounding us and keeping us in a character-driven thing without getting too bombastic. But coupling that against this community aspect of this historical period drama that's also trying to, you know, investigate what's happening was a smooth touch.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that you can do that means that the whole thing becomes more Nolan-esque in its big ideas without losing itself in that endeavor. And then, you know, this concept of what he gets out of the Bhagavad Gita, which is like the, you know, the real famous quote, you know, of Oppenheimer's, which is, you know, I am now become death, destroyer of worlds. Like that is the mantra, the underlying philosophical idea of the whole film. And then of course it ends with, you know, him realizing what he's done with somebody like Einstein, which, by the way, greatest looking character decision to like make it look like the real person. Like, so anyway, yeah, I think this movie, best crafted film he has, and that's saying something, because Inception is like, you heard me gush about Inception. So like the fact that I'm saying this is better crafted, or like even Dunkirk, I think it's better. It's just that much more dense and packed with craft. I think Dunkirk's a tighter movie. I think Inception is a more like fun rewatch, and it's like something I'll continue to go back for because Oppenheimer is very bleak, and it's dense and long. But I think its craft is at its highest level. He is literally getting better at what he's doing, which is really cool to watch.
It's one of the great things about Oppenheimer, and of course he's the director, but the score is actually what, for a courtroom drama movie with not really anything going on, and maybe a lackluster first bombing test sequence. Right. I'm just going to call it what it is. Yeah. I'm just going to call it what it is. Yeah. Literally, the weak point in the movie to me is a moment everybody's waiting for. Yeah. And it's not totally the point, right? I actually think my favorite portion of the movie happens after that. And I know some people are like, oh, I thought the movie should end. After that, you get the scene where the wall's moving behind him and all that, and the sound design, it's incredible. Like the stomping and... Yeah, and then the scene where they're all watching images from the bombing on the projector, but you don't see them and you see the reactions. I know that offended some people that they didn't show it, but there was a point and a reason for that. I think it was that usually the third act of Nolan films are what I critique the most, but this one I actually think it's his strongest, minus the opening, 7 to 10 minutes of the film is one of the greatest openings of a film to me, of Oppenheimer. It's incredible, and the sound and all of that. But back to what I was about to state is the score for the film and how it drives something that should be really boring, just a lot of talking. The score and what's done there really moves it, and it's tight editing. That's part. It's all working together, right? But like, shout out to the design there and to the intentionality of the music and the choice of violin, but the rhythmic stuff underneath as well, leading to the bomb. I would double tap on the fact that that's the driving force. But you even just mentioned like the pacing of the editing does give you that extra oomph, because you get this like push with the score, but what keeps you kind of in the guardrails is the editing. Right. So it's like because you can bounce between these two things, it's like you're bouncing against each guardrail, and the score is what's moving. It's like the score is the escalator, and you're literally like bouncing your way up or something like that. Even just the color change, doing color to black and white.
as we've seen in Memento with black and white being interjected to create timelines, like we've already seen him do that effectively. And so he's really just pulling into his own bag of tricks to let us go with him. Yeah. We can accept that faster because we've seen it work before in something in a more complex structure, right? To go backwards in time in Memento versus forward.
Right.
And so just because they're not the same time frame, we accept that as audiences because we can just follow it. It's not complicated. Mm-hmm. And so that allows us to like let that go, right? And we don't have to worry about thinking about when things are happening. And even though it's not super clear when they're happening, we don't care as much because we're just getting it given to us. Yeah. We're following that escalator and letting it bounce us between the two with the score moving us forward. Mm-hmm. And I think that's it's like the scene, like when you talk about making scene to scene and you have an arrow between them because every scene's supposed to lead forward. It's like he does that, but he does that in multiple timelines, which again shows really good craft. Mm-hmm. It shows a great written screenplay, which again I think is from like a first perspective almost wholly, except he chose not to do it from first perspective in that specific side of things so that it's easier to follow. Yeah. I just think it works really well. Well, so the further up question is going to be for you guys, like what do you guys think? But we're going to go now and rank all 13 of Christopher Nolan's films. Yeah. I believe you have them on your watch there, and I think I could pull it up on my phone. I think I have it as well. I reserve the right to change this at any point.
Mine is changed. I actually have two rankings. One's a critical, basically execution. Mm-hmm. Did the film meet its objective and outcome? Mm-hmm. That's kind of how I first rank it, and then I have just my more of like a favorite, like. You could say rewatchable, but that's not quite it. It's more just like, this is an order of just
which ones I like
enjoy these, even if they're not critically as good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the way I do my rankings is I try to couple those two things, like from Greg's perspective, right? I like try to take what I know of as the critical reception and the way that it's made, the craft, couple that with the fact that I like respond to it because I know it's subjective, so I'm okay with making that decision.
That's good.
I would like to hear both lists. So before you give me your favorite list, and then that's when we'll both do a list. But give me your like rundown of the critical. Like what's just read it from bottom to top, and then I'll probably put it on screen just so people can follow. But
I'm always second guessing this because I'm like, well, and even as we talk about this, I'm like, well,
right.
So. We'll talk again and I'll go, hey, this actually switched places, which is always happening on rewatches.
Sure.
At number 12, I have Insomnia.
Okay.
I have Following at 11, Dark Knight Rises at 10, Interstellar at 9, Tenet at 8. This one's probably going to throw some people off, but I have The Dark Knight at 7, Oppenheimer at 6. That might throw some other people off. Batman Begins at 5, Inception at 4, Memento at 3, The Prestige at 2, Dunkirk at 1. Mm-hmm. That's
specifically in regards to a critic's view of what movie is made the best.
It's all ingredients considered is kind of how I'm saying it.
Yep.
Did it do the thing? Mm-hmm. And ingredients includes budget and expertise and all that. So I'm trying to weigh in all aspects, not just the film itself, but where was he in his career? Why could this weigh higher and anyways.
I like it. Okay. Yeah. Right. So my bottom 4, which these are in order, are Following, Tenet, The Dark Knight Rises, Interstellar. So what are your bottom 4?
Bottom 4, Insomnia, Following, Memento, and Oppenheimer.
Wow. Memento I expected to be higher.
It is an important clarification on. I could work on a list later of marrying these two, and it'd probably change that.
Fair enough.
But this is just like, want to sit down and watch it is a crass way to put it. Like, so in that order, it's like, do I want to sit down and watch Oppenheimer all the time? No. I don't. So that's why it's at number 9.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, and Memento, like, no, it's again kind of that score, that bleak. Like, but I love it. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
sure.
And again, we're talking about 12 movies here, so to be at number 9 is not like
it's terrible. Which I should caveat: the only ones that I think I would put anywhere near my low end of ratings, right? Because I have a 7-tier rating scale, right?
Yeah.
And so in the pocket is my middle. The only two I would even put as even a consideration below in the pocket are Following and Tenet. Maybe Dark Knight Rises, maybe, but I still don't think it does, because the first one below is called Lacks Umph, and I still think Following doesn't lack umph. I think it works. And Dark Knight Rises doesn't lack umph. I think it works. So the lowest rating I'm giving one of his films is maybe lacks umph in Tenet, but everything above that is always like a thumbs up for me. So like, take that with the grain of salt that it is, because literally out of 12 movies, I think he's had one that's not technically a positive. Which is so crazy. And even that is I could give. Because like even in our talk of Tenet, it's like, well, I could see the merits because it's so well made. So it's like, that's definitely its own testament to Christopher Nolan's abilities. All right, so then the next 4 for me. So 8 is Insomnia. Then I've got Batman Begins. Then Dunkirk. Then The Prestige. Which this is crazy based on what we've just talked about. Like this is really interesting. And the reason I think the reason I have Prestige and Dunkirk in this second tier, if you will, is just because, like you were saying, like there's this rewatchability aspects to them, and then there's this like longevity aspect to them. Because the ones that I go back to, which the Prestige, after what we talked about, I actually think I would flip between it and my number 4. Because now the more we talked about it, the more I was thinking about it, and like that kind of moves it up for me. So my 4 and 5, I think I could interchange, but like the further up this list you go, the harder it is to differentiate.
I think I have several of those where I'm like, let's flip them.
So what are your next 4?
8, Interstellar. Dark Knight 7. You'll learn why I have this in a minute. 'Cause now I want to change it. I went and looked at this yesterday because I knew we were going to talk about this. But I have Inception at number 6 and Prestige at number 5. And my number 4, which we'll get to that in a minute, I'm like, I actually would maybe currently I'd bump that to number 6 and bump those 2 up.
Fair enough.
So, but we'll get there.
And again, as we delve further deeper into these, it makes sense that we would differentiate. Because like once you've delved into them again and you're kind of going through the memory task of going through them all, there is differences that appear. And so it makes sense that we would want to adjust. All right, so let me hear your top 4.
The top 4, so I have Tenet at number 4. And again, on the rewatchable, because I went through a phase where it's like, this is just fun and fascinating to watch. But I might move that. But right now I have it on a number 4. I have Dark Knight Rises at number 3.
Wow.
Again, I just enjoy it.
It's conclusion. It's great.
And it's a happy ending.
Oh.
2, I could argue flipping number 1 and 2 on watchability, but I have number 2, Batman Begins, number 1, Dunkirk.
Sure. I think that's completely understandable. I think Batman Begins should not be as high, but that's again so subjective. But I get why you say that, especially after what we just talked about.
It's a foundation. It's his first like real blockbuster, and he started something, and it's what Dark Knight can stand on.
Sure.
And I think it's solid. Like there's better villains to come, okay, but it's just it's so enjoyable. Batman Begins is like, it's a movie I could just turn on all the time. I'm not going to turn on Dunkirk all the time, even though I have it at the top of my list. It's my favorite movie next to Fellowship of the Ring. Shout out. Anyways, Batman Begins is just so enjoyable to me.
Well, my top 4, which again, this 4 and 5, I think I would shift today. I think I would change this. So my 4 is Oppenheimer. And my 5 was The Prestige, so I think I could flip those. And Prestige would be 4. So Oppenheimer currently is at 4. Memento is 3. Dark Knight is 2. Inception is 1. But again, I think I made that clear in our ranking or in our reviews because it blows my mind that literally you went from Dark Knight to Inception, and they're both just so incredibly good. And I don't have the same gripes in the third act that you do, although I do understand them. And so like I could see myself moving the Dark Knight down some, but I still feel like as far as again longevity, rewatch, overall impact, like craft level, I think those 2 movies are just literally peak Nolan. And I think that, like I said, Oppenheimer and Prestige are kind of interchangeable. I think Memento, what you just said about Batman Begins is Memento for me. It's what started his capability of being able to manipulate the elements of filmmaking to make something interesting and new and deep. And like that just carries him forward. And that's what, to me, makes Batman Begins possible because it's literally dealing with something else other than, oh, it's just a comic book movie. So yeah, man.
Yeah.
And then I think Inception could be considered one of the best movies of all time. Like it is so well made, so interesting. And what you talk about with Tenet is what I did with Inception. I watched it so many times. I was so engaged. I was so enthralled with the if and why and just like the underlying tension there. And then of course the way I talked with people and the way people talked to me about it. Like I think me and my college roommate argued about it like every night for months, you know, because he was on the other side of it.
But
like,
did you figure out how to incept your view into his brainwaves?
I should have, man. I don't know why I didn't do that.
Yeah.
I probably need to do brain surgery.
No, listening to you talk about it, and anytime I go to rewatch Inception, I just go, it's got to go up. So even looking at this list, I'm like, no, I'd shift Tenet down and move it up.
For sure, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I want to kind of wrap things up. You know, I appreciate you being here. Appreciate talking about this. I think this was super fun.
Super fun.
You know, I hope that people get something from this, and you know, the underlying ideas that are at work in Christopher Nolan's work are not unique. I think that movies actually tap into a lot of these things across the board, and so you know, hopefully we can find a way to talk about this kind of thing more often, and you know, allow for more conversation in regards to this peak art form that we have in the current day and space.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts or things you want to say about Nolan? Or
I'm glad he's doing what he's doing, and that he's got the opportunity to do that, and he's paving a path for other people to walk down that and making a case for big films and theaters and all the things. And I know there's a few other people doing that, but that's a good thing, especially for an aspiring filmmaker, you know, to want to walk somewhat of a similar path. So like, love Christopher Nolan, inspired by him, can't wait to see this film and see what he does next. So I hope he's got a few more decades of films in him. So yeah.
Right on. All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching. Let us know what your ranking is down in the comments below, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Dude.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, dude.
Hopefully it's still running.
Yeah. Good.
Oh.
No. Did it? Oh, we've at least got the full cam here.
Oh my gosh.